With the release of GNX, the rap world was shaken to its core. Instantly hailed as a fan favorite, the album garnered universal acclaim from critics, devoted fans, and even dusty YouTube reaction channels like myself. It was praised for its seamless digestibility, masterful use of samples, and Kendrick's triumphant celebration of his victory in the most electrifying rap battle of the decade. In return, he gifted us some of the hardest-hitting bangers of his career. The project wasn't just the crown jewel of Kendrick's most successful year yet. It was the exclamation point. It echoed the same unrelenting energy he gave us at the start of the year with his unforgettable feature verse on Future's Like That. That verse set him apart from the pack, cementing his place at the top, worthy of every accolade imaginable. But with greatness comes resilience. Just as Like That drew a fresh wave of enemies Kendrick's way, GNX has sparked its own war. Some of the usual suspects have resurfaced, but this time, new names have entered the fray. Some are targets Kendrick intentionally called out, but others, they've thrown themselves into the battlefield, reacting to shots that Kendrick may not have even aimed at them. And the root of most of these problems stems from the very first track on the album, Whacked Out Murals. We're going to end up dissecting most of this track in this video just because of the sheer number of people that Kendrick mentions either directly or indirectly. And on a side note, this track to me feels like the real version of 616 in LA, or at least a continuation of it. This is the most timestamp-esque record that we've ever got from Kendrick, where he's directly speaking on issues that have happened over the last few months. It's believed that Kendrick actually recorded this record less than 2 months ago, given the relevancy of the subject matter and the odes to other recent records from him like Watch the Party Die. And the individual to take most offense from the subject matter within this record was ironically the most random individual on this list of enemies that Kendrick created with GNX, and that would be Andrew Schulz. On the third verse of this record, Kendrick rapped, "Don't let no white comedian talk about no black woman, that's law. I know propaganda work for them, and F whoever that's close to them, the people that coon, the people that been grooming, slide on both of them." Now, Andrew Schulz thought this bar was directed at him due to a joke he made back in July. He had said that dating a black woman would cause you to go bald due to the stress levels of your relationship, and that you'd grow a beard to use as a cushion for when they hit you.
What is the black girlfriend effect? This is
you might not know about this.
glow up the other culture.
Yeah, so you'll see a guy who's had a black girlfriend, all of a sudden he's got buzz cut, like clean shape up.
They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this black girl complaining about shit all the time. That's why they gotta shave their hair.
Nah, bro, white guys with black girlfriends, they
grow a beard because there's more cushion when they get slapped the out.
After this record came out, academics said that he spoke to Schulz about it, and Schulz thought that Kendrick was too woke to understand a joke.
By the way, I hit Andrew Schulz about that. And I think his reaction was, he's like, yo, is this guy too woke to understand a joke?
Then a few days later, Schulz went on his own podcast and took the jokes, if you want to call them that, up a notch. Now, it's one thing to feel like people are too sensitive over comedy, but the way Schulz was acting here, he was more sensitive over this bar that wasn't even actually directed at him, which we're going to touch on shortly, but he seemed to be more sensitive and butthurt over this bar than Kendrick even was to begin with about white comedians making jokes about black women. First, he grouped all rappers together and said that they shouldn't speak on morality when it comes to women because of the vulgarity in hip-hop lyrics throughout history.
Rappers are telling comedians we need to be more respectful to women, so we gotta sit back and reflect.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
They're the most pious group.
Listen, nobody has respected women more than rappers, okay?
Absolutely.
So I completely understand how a rapper could look at a comedian telling a joke and be like, yo, y'all need to switch that up.
Yeah.
How dare y'all keep saying your wives are annoying? Be more like us and, you know, this ain't nothing but hoes and tricks. I beat my with a stick. What?
Did you just think of that?
That's a real lyric from music that protects women.
Now, it's important to note that he wasn't even quoting Kendrick lyrics here, but he then goes on to directly quote the Kendrick lyrics from Whacked Out Murals, where he's talking about white comedians making fun of black women, and he tries to poke fun at the incorrect grammar within the bar, stating that from a grammatical standpoint, technically, Kendrick was inferring that white comedians should be making fun of black women.
All right, let's see the exact line. Don't let no white comedian talk about no black woman, that's law. Now, technically speaking, if we're going off of grammatic English,
Okay.
He's saying, I can talk about black women. And that is why.
Don't let no white comedian talk about no black
So
woman.
he's basically saying all white comedians
Are only allowed to
talk about black women.
exclusively.
That's what I'm talking about, Kendrick.
Then Schultz sarcastically jokes about the hypocrisy of Kendrick calling out white comedians when he's doing some sort of TV special with the South Park creators. Which, as a side note, if you know anything about South Park, then you should be very excited for this special. Like, I'm more excited for this collaboration than I am for another Kendrick album. Like, these guys are the GOATs at comedy, storytelling, far superior than Andrew Schultz, which we're going to touch on shortly, but their comedic approach to social commentary, mixed with Kendrick's own comedic approach within his music and the obvious impeccable penmanship that he possesses, like, if this is going to be some sort of comedy special / musical, which, side note, again, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park, are also incredibly hilarious songwriters. Search up Kanye West, Gay Fish, South Park if you want reference, but yeah, it's definitely going to be an incredible collaboration. Drop a comment if you're excited for that, and this is what Schultz had to say about Kendrick linking up with the South Park creators.
Now I understand why he's doing a comedy with the South Park creators.
That makes
Because
sense.
he appreciates white comedians that make fun of black people.
There you go.
And they've done that brilliantly for decades.
Yeah, that's true.
And he would never want to, break one of his own laws.
No, that's true.
I mean, didn't they have a character called Token on the South Park show?
Yeah, they do.
Which I'm sure Kendrick is a big fan of.
Then Andrew Schultz's co-host Akash Singh questions why Kendrick has collaborated with artists who have been accused of their own allegations of abuse, like Dr. Dre or Chris Brown, or why he was protesting to take his music off of Spotify if they removed R. Kelly's catalog, if Kendrick really is all about protecting black women.
It's very important to him to protect black women. That's why he's never done a song with an abuser confirmed. He's never done a song
thank
with
God.
anybody
Thank God.
that's
Thank God.
suspected of abuse.
Thank
He's
God.
never threatened to remove his music from Spotify
Thank
because
God.
they removed R. Kelly's music. This is all very important to Kendrick.
And while I think they're missing the point in that Kendrick has always stood for positivity within his music, has always done his best to uplift black people, he can still appreciate comedy while telling his people to not take disrespect from white comedians or from anyone in general. And I think Andrew missed the main point, which is that Kendrick wasn't even talking to Schultz directly. If that bar even was in reference to the jokes that Schultz made, Kendrick is talking to the people around Schultz, most notably probably Charlemagne the God, telling them not to let a white comedian talk about black women. He never said white comedians stop talking about black women. He's referencing the people around Schultz. But that's the problem with Andrew Schultz. He's always had to be the loudest in the room and the center of attention, and it takes away from the sophistication of his comedy. Ironically, for years, I've been comparing Schultz to the Drake of comedy. See, Andrew Schultz is a savvy entertainer, but when it comes to comedy as an art form, you can describe his approach the same way you can narrow down Drake's approach to music. They're both prolific and popular, but formulaic and lacking depth. Schultz's comedy thrives on being topical and provocative, but this focus on immediacy often sacrifices sophistication. Much like Drake's tendency to ride trends and be everywhere in every sound all at once, Schultz's jokes aim for virality rather than timelessness, leaving little that resonates after the punchline lands. You could compare this to many different comedic styles. Take Jerry Seinfeld, for example, whose observational humor finds profound truths in the mundane, or Theo Von, who crafts surreal, offbeat worlds with wit and unpredictability. Schultz's reliance on stereotypes and shock value feels shallow next to comedians like Dave Chappelle, who also incorporates controversy into his bits, but does so with nuance and intelligence, or Hannah Gadsby, who uses comedy to challenge perspectives and explore vulnerability. Schultz's omnipresence everywhere, on podcasts to Netflix specials to YouTube to social media, mirrors Drake's everywhere at once strategy, but this overexposure dilutes his material. Contrast this with John Mulaney's curated, masterfully structured performances, or Ali Wong's deliberate and personal storytelling. Schultz's rapid-fire approach often feels more about promoting his persona than delivering meaningful material. Like Drake's middle-of-the-road lyricism, Schultz's comedy caters to the masses but lacks the risk and innovation of greats like Bo Burnham, who blends introspection with boundary-pushing creativity, or Patton Oswalt, whose layered humor rewards careful listening. Even Bill Burr tackles difficult subjects with insight and nuance, elevating his comedy above the surface-level provocations that Schultz often relies on. Schultz is undeniably entertaining, but his comedy often feels like fast food. Quick, accessible, and untimely forgettable compared to the gourmet artistry of comedians like Seinfeld, Chappelle, or Mulaney. True comedy, like great music, demands more than just being everywhere or being edgy. It demands substance, risk, and depth, which is something we definitely did not get from Schultz in his final response to Kendrick's record. In a cheap attempt at cracking fun of Kendrick's short stature, Schultz proceeds to paint a disturbingly vivid picture of both him and K-Dot in a prison cell, and the assault and fondling he would proceed to indulge in with Kendrick out of sheer boredom of being incarcerated. I'm not going to play the clip because you could find it on your own, and frankly it's too disgusting, but Schultz basically said that if him and Kendrick were alone, it would be up to Kendrick to decide if Schultz's actions were consensual or not, but that he was too short and small to stop assault from actually happening. Now, Charlemagne the God, the co-host of the Brilliant Idiot podcast, which is another one of the dozens of platforms that Schultz has plastered his face all over, he sat down with Schultz for an episode of their podcast and had an interesting take on the whole Kendrick issue, one that I somewhat agree with, basically saying that comedians should be allowed to joke about any and everybody. You get down a somewhat dangerous rabbit hole when you try to police comedy. However, it is up to the viewer to establish whether the joke actually landed and if it was funny or not. And in this case, in my opinion, like many other of Schultz's shock jockey-esque jokes, it just wasn't that funny. And then getting all butthurt about Kendrick not wanting his people to take disrespect proves that he's more sensitive than the rapper himself. If Kendrick can't police your comedy, why can you police his bars? But anyways, this is what Charlemagne had to say about the matter.
I agree that if you're a comedian, you have, I don't want to say license because that's not the right word, but you have the license to make jokes about any and everybody. Since when do we police comedians? And by the way, if you don't like the jokes, you have every right to say it. You can rap about it, you can protest about it, you can be offended, you can tweet about it, you can do all of that.
And to sum it all up, Schultz insisted that he does make jokes about everyone, not just one specific group, and he's not racist, which I don't believe he is. I just think he's a bad comedian, but that's for you guys to decide. And the most outrageous thing that Schultz said was that he was responsible for the massive success of GNX due to the controversy he roped himself into with Kendrick Lamar.
If Andrew was a person who only was constantly making jokes about one group of people, it would be different.
100%.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
don't get me wrong, there are people who call themselves comedians that oftentimes use it as a smokescreen to just say some really f***ed up, dumb, jokes that are probably racist or hateful.
Yeah.
And that sucks, and that's just bad comedy. But if you're being honest, like if we're all sitting here being honest, and anybody even online that knows anything about me is being honest, you don't believe that.
You're equal opportunist.
Exactly. It's like you've seen me make fun of everybody.
Now, Schultz's comments didn't come without their own controversy. Punch from Kendrick's old record label TDE tweeted out saying, wait, I know as a black man who's involved in hip-hop music that we're a bit slow and don't really understand sarcasm and humor, but did my guy say that he wants to sleep with K-Dot? Another person who commented on this was Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson Jr. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, but it's ironic that he commented on this because Ice Cube was recently saying in an interview that he wouldn't perform with Kendrick at the Super Bowl because he doesn't want to be a guest at the show. He'd rather have his own performance. But his son reacted to Schultz's bit about fondling Kendrick by tweeting out that he's a weird guy. Andrew Schultz replied by saying, Google No Vaseline by Ice Cube, which, if you guys didn't know, is a diss track Ice Cube wrote about his former group NWA getting effed over by their record label. So Ice Cube's son responded by saying, a metaphor about getting effed business-wise by your manager is not the same, homie. He ain't call you a B-word, he ain't say F you, didn't even say your name, and your response was buck-breaking. It was just crazy. And that's where the Schultz saga ends, but this is where it gets interesting because on that same record, Whacked Out Murals, Kendrick was making direct references to several different rappers directly, some referencing prior issues that Kendrick had this year, and others starting brand new beefs with rappers that Kendrick likely wasn't even talking about in a malicious way. The main one stemming from an issue with one of Kendrick's greatest inspirations, Lil Wayne. See, it's no secret that Weezy was one of K-Dot's greatest influences within hip-hop. He stated in many tweets that Wayne is one of the most influential rappers of all time. He's given Wayne his flowers for inspiring Kendrick to improve his work ethic when Lil Wayne blessed him with a collaboration way back in 2008 when Kendrick was still an underground rapper and Wayne was in his prime. Seeing a prime Weezy knock out 15 verses in one studio session inspired Kendrick to work harder, and when Wayne was past his prime in 2015 and teased the hint of retirement, Kendrick got drunk on Instagram Live and spun many classic Weezy records way back from the Hot Boys days when Wayne was just like 17, 18 rapping on tracks, and he was drunkenly yelling at the camera for Wayne to not retire.
Talking about retiring and shit. F that. Retire, quit and rap, whatever you want to call it. Fuck that. Don't bother me.
They also collaborated on a cut in 2018 titled Mona Lisa, and Wayne has been requested on numerous occasions to perform the record, but he has said that that song contains way too many lyrics to remember them all to perform live. But with them collaborating several times in the past, with Kendrick showing Wayne a lot of love, it was a surprise to the world that when Kendrick was chosen to be the performer at the 2025 Super Bowl show in New Orleans, instead of staying silent, which he probably should have done given the lyrical beatdown that Kendrick gave his protege Drake, Wayne got on Instagram teary-eyed, stating that he was robbed of the opportunity to be the Super Bowl halftime performer since it was in his hometown of New Orleans. To his credit, he did put the blame on himself for expecting something that was never offered to him, but instead of just staying silent or even congratulating Kendrick, Wayne instead made the moment all about himself. And that's why on Whacked Out Murals, a record where Kendrick draws the line in the sand between what he stands for versus what he deems to be the toxic traits of the culture, he acknowledges at the beginning of the record that both the love and the hate is definite without a cure. You can't control the haters, and he addresses one of those haters later in the song when he raps, "Used to bump the Carter 3, I wore my Rolly chain proud. The irony, I think my hard work let Lil Wayne down." While again, this wasn't a malicious bar in any way, because he's again acknowledging how much of an inspiration Wayne was to him early on in his career, he's also acknowledging the irony in that all the inspiration he took from Wayne powered him up to be the superstar that he is today, which granted him the opportunity of performing at the halftime show, which left Lil Wayne distraught, feeling like Kendrick stripped that opportunity away from him. A day after the track was released, Lil Wayne went on Twitter and said, "Man, what the F I do? I just be chilling and they still come for my head. Let's not take kindness for weakness. Let this giant sleep. I beg you all. No one really wants destruction, not even me, but I shall destroy if disturbed. On me. Love." Now, that's some pretty tough talk from a rapper whose last diss track included and was solely limited to the bars, "F Pusha T and anybody that love him, his head up his butt, I'ma have to headbutt him." Surprising that after witnessing the smackdown that Kendrick performed on his protege Drake, Wayne would be so confident to step into his first ever rap battle with Kendrick if Kendrick didn't quote unquote let this giant sleep. And according to Joe Budden, Wayne actually got in the booth after this was all said and done. He allegedly tried calling Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick didn't pick up. The issue was never clarified. Wayne took those bars on Whacked Out Murals as an insult, and allegedly, he went in the booth and recorded a diss track of his own. Now, this is where the story ends. We haven't got that diss track yet. I don't personally think we will. Growing up on Lil Wayne's music, him being one of my favorite rappers of all time, I don't personally want to see it this late in his career, but who knows what the future holds. And speaking of it being this late in Wayne's career, many people were confused why Wayne would take insult to this record. However, a lot of people are overlooking the bars that come right after Kendrick says he let Lil Wayne down. He raps, "All these guys agitated, I'm just glad they're showing their faces. Quite frankly, plenty artists, but they're outdated. Old flows trying to convince me that you're their favorite." Wayne is obviously many people's favorite rapper, Kendrick included at one point, even toting the tag of being the best rapper alive for many years throughout his career. And many people are attributing the fact that Wayne didn't get chosen to perform at the Super Bowl this year because of how late he is into his career. And while his skill set as an MC is most definitely still there, his impact in 2024 is nowhere near where it was in his prime back in 2008. Kendrick aligning the bars directly at Wayne talking about the Carter 3 with the subsequent set of bars talking about old rappers with dated flows desperately trying to convince people that they're still the greatest rapper is likely Kendrick's answer as to why he was chosen to be the Super Bowl halftime performer over Wayne. You're not going to go with a performer whose flows are old and outdated. Another OG who Kendrick referenced in this record immediately after the bars that he had for Wayne was Snoop Dogg. See, way before Kendrick won his battle with Drake, dropping Not Like Us, he remained silent and calculated as Drake trolled on Instagram and dropped diss track after diss track. After Push-Ups, he dropped Tailor Made Freestyle, where he used AI vocals to impersonate and rap from the perspective of both Tupac and Snoop Dogg, where he used their voice to give Kendrick a pep talk to finally muscle up the courage to drop a diss record against Drake and participate in this battle. While Tupac's estate didn't take this lightly, threatening to sue Drake if he didn't take the song down, Snoop Dogg, on the other hand, actually had quite a positive response to the record. He reposted it on his Instagram, even reacting to it in a clip.
"They did what? When? How? Are you sure? Y'all have a good night. And to all." Went off Everybody calling my phone, blowing me up. What happened? What's going on? I'm going back to bed. Good night.
Kendrick was confused as to why Snoop Dogg would take that record as anything other than a form of disrespect. So on Whacked Out Murals, he rapped, "Snoop posted Tailor Made, I prayed it was the edibles." Basically saying like, I hope Snoop Dogg was really high thinking that this record was anything but a disgusting disgrace at the legacy of both him and Tupac. Snoop Dogg replied to these bars gracefully, unlike Lil Wayne, tweeting out that it was in fact the edibles and giving Kendrick his flowers for the incredible album that he just put out. He tweeted, "K.new album GNX, fire, it was the edibles, West West King," acknowledging that Kendrick is currently the king of LA. And speaking of LA, he had one final bar for Lil Wayne on this album off the song TV Off, where he references the Super Bowl again, saying that he's going to be walking in New Orleans with the etiquette of LA, yelling ketchup. Not so much a shot at Wayne, just basically taunting the fact that Wayne could hope and pray for an opportunity to perform in his hometown, but instead, Kendrick is going to bring his own hometown to Lil Wayne's hometown on that Super Bowl stage. But speaking of Lil Wayne, Weezy's protege Drizzy Drake Rogers caught several different shots from Kendrick on this new album that many people looked over just because of how subliminal they truly were. Kendrick kicks off the first verse of the first track off this album, already addressing his beef with Drake by rapping, "I done been through it all, what did you endure? It used to be F that guy, but now it's plural. F everybody that's on my body." Now, something interesting that one of the analysts at Genius pointed out is that on the outro of the track I off To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick says, "I promised Dave that I'd never use the phrase F N-words. He said, think about what you're saying. F N-words." And they noted that while on To Pimp a Butterfly he talks about how he wouldn't use that phrase, he seems to carry a bit of a different tune here, and they believe it's because where he wanted to elevate black and hip-hop culture on To Pimp a Butterfly, here on GNX, he's trying to destroy it. And by saying words that to him start violence, he's giving us the idea that he hates Drake and the state of hip-hop so much that to him, they're well deserving of being called F N-words. Later on the album, God calls out to Kendrick about how he loves war despite talking about how he tries to bring peace with his art. And what adds to the irony is how even though Kendrick's using the type of words that would start a cycle of violence, God to him is still on his side, which is also a callback to 616 in LA, where he's talking to God and contemplating if he should go to war. On Whacked Out Murals, Kendrick continues rapping, "I watch him pander with the backhanded compliments, put their head on a Cuban link as a monument." Now, this could be a shot at Drake because this beef started with Kendrick's verse on Like That, right? He said, "F sneak dissing, first person shooter, I hope they came with 3 switches." But before this verse was released, there was a massive subliminal war between Drake and Kendrick, which started over a decade ago when Kendrick called Drake out by name on his Control verse. Drake was publicly very butthurt over being mentioned in that verse and would continuously throw an onslaught of different sneak disses at Kendrick throughout his material, leading up to the beef that finally took place in 2024. On the language, he rapped, "I don't know why they've been lying, but your stuff is not that inspiring." Then in 2015, he linked up with The Game, another LA rapper, and went to Kendrick's hometown of Compton to shoot the video for their song 100. And on that song, he rapped, "I would have all of your fans if I didn't go pop and I stayed on some conscious stuff." Many believe that Kendrick also threw some subliminals at Drake on songs like Element and The Heart Part 4 in 2017, especially when he rapped, "My fans can't wait for me to sun you punk and crush your whole little thing." But when Damn released in 2017 and ended up outselling Drake's More Life album, there was a picture of the sales report showing that Damn was outselling More Life, and Drake commented on it saying, "Amazing to see our music moving." He later also liked a comment by a fan which said, "Get Drake, Kendrick, and J. Cole on the same record." These are obviously backhanded compliments coming off the heels of a slew of sneak disses from Drake on various different records. And then of course, the song that started this whole battle, First Person Shooter, Drake and J. Cole both rap about the Big Three, mentioning that Kendrick's a part of the Big Three, but J. Cole also saying that he feels like Muhammad Ali, he feels like the GOAT, and Drake saying, "Who's the GOAT? Well, it's just you and Cole," obviously leaving Kendrick out. But they allegedly both tried to get Kendrick on that record, and Kendrick here is saying he's seen all these backhanded compliments, and instead of pandering to them, he instead put their head on a chain as a monument, which is something you do to honor the legacy of someone who's passed away. Now, on the second verse of Whacked Out Murals, Kendrick raps, ducking strays when I rap battled in the Nickersons, where you from, not where I'm from, we're all indigenous, against all odds I squabbled up for them dividends, against all odds I showed up as a gentleman. And while this wasn't a direct shot at Drake, it's important to note that Kendrick hails from Compton, California, which is extremely close in proximity to the Nickerson Gardens housing complexes. His lineage is indigenous to that land. Now, when Kendrick first threw a shot on like that, many people weren't prepared to see him in the boxing ring, mainly because he's never been a part of a major mainstream rap battle in his career. But he's reminding you that hip-hop is in his DNA. He's indigenous to the essence of the culture, and he was even sending strays way back in his early rap career when he battled in Nickerson's. There's clips of him in rap battles way back when he was just 21 years old in Nickerson Gardens, so he was always ready for this battle with Drake, and just like he says, against all odds, he squabbled up for them dividends. Also emphasizing that Drake is not truly part of the culture, he's not like us. When he raps, where you from, not where I'm from, we're all indigenous. Kendrick then continues rapping, put that on my kids' children, we're gonna see the future first, and that's an ode back to Watch the Party Die when Kendrick rapped, why reason with these guys if they can't see the future first? Kendrick starts the third verse of Whacked Out Murals off by rapping, guys from my city couldn't entertain old boy, promising bank transactions and even Bitcoin. I never pieced it up, that stuff don't sit well with me. Before I take a truce, I'll take him to hell with me. If that money got in the hands of a crash dummy, could jeopardize my family, burden the ones who love me. Y'all mad because I decided not to pretend. You stay politically correct, I'ma do what I did. And this is an ode back to 616 in LA when Kendrick rapped that this beef was fun before Drake put money in the streets and lost money when he came back with no receipts. Essentially what Kendrick's saying here is that in an attempt to pivot this beef from bar-fueled breakdowns on each other's character and legacy to instead making it an allegation-fueled bloodbath of controversy and exposés, Drake did his best to pay people around Kendrick for dirt on him to use in a diss song, even promising bank transactions and Bitcoin in exchange for information. Kendrick emphasizes that if that money got in the hands of someone who wasn't truly loyal to him, it could jeopardize the privacy and reputation of his family members, which we saw Drake trying to do when he defaced Kendrick's relationship with his fiancée Whitney. On the second song, Squabble Up, which is the same track he previewed in his Not Like Us music video, Kendrick comes with one of the funniest sneak disses I've personally ever heard. So on the second verse he raps, I got friends, I got foes, but they all sitting ducks. Now, we obviously know who his foes are, as on Whacked Out Murals, he told us it used to be F that guy, now it's F everybody. But here he's saying his foes are sitting ducks. What are sitting ducks? Well, that's an expression for a person or thing with no protection against an attack or other source of danger. Sounds like Drake throughout this battle. Also, funny enough, a male duck is called a drake. A female duck is called a hen, a baby duck is a duckling, and a male duck is a drake. So just like he was bashing an owl pinata in the Not Like Us music video, he's saying here Drake is not an owl, he's more like a sitting duck, a weak specimen with no protection against attack. On the third verse, Kendrick makes reference to some Drake songs and his album For All the Dogs when he raps, it was wolf tickets on sale till I silenced it, and wolf tickets is a phrase meant to mean that someone is lying or not true to the image that they're projecting. Kind of like all bark, no bite. So Kendrick here is implying that he called Drake's bluff in their beef, and with woof being the sound that dogs make, he's also making a reference back to For All the Dogs. He continues by rapping, pipe down young, these are whole other politics, and pipe down is the name of a song off of Drake's album CLB, while he also rapped at Kendrick on Push Up saying, pip squeak pike down. Kendrick makes another reference to For All the Dogs by ending the verse rapping, it's a full move, let the wolves out, I've been a dog. He also may have been inferring to Drake's PDF tendencies and the company he keeps around as he rapped, don't hit him, he got kids with him, my apologies. Then we move on to the fifth track of the album, my personal most replayed track so far, which is Hey Now. And on there, Kendrick rapped, you crash out, then you better break the backboard. I got friends hoping that they make the tabloids. You know the last one figured he was Magneto. You play God, you're gonna get what you asked for. Now, Magneto was a character from Marvel's X-Men series, and he often saw himself as being superior to humans, frequently playing the role of an antagonist due to his godlike ambitions. Similarly to how Drake portrays himself as this larger-than-life figure and also calls himself the Sixth God. He figured he was Magneto, he plays God, he's gonna get what he asked for. Kendrick continues rapping, I put a square on his back like I'm Jack Dorsey. So with this line, it's interesting because obviously he's saying that he's putting a target on someone's back and using Jack Dorsey's company Square as a metaphor. But what's interesting here is that Jack Dorsey was very vocal championing Kendrick throughout the entire battle with Drake. When Kendrick tweeted out Meet the Grams, Jack Dorsey tweeted out Truth versus Lies. He also dug way back to Kendrick's tweets from 2011 and dug up a tweet where Kendrick wrote, June 16th, Toronto, grab tickets here. This was ironically the date that Kendrick met Drake, and Jack Dorsey retweeted this tweet with a heart emoji on the day that Kendrick dropped Not Like Us. So many people were confused as to why Jack Dorsey was picking a side in a battle he had no involvement in, but it's alleged that Drake actually slept with Jack's ex-girlfriend, and this is according to Aiden Ross and DJ Academics.
But apparently Drake done somebody he been with. He hate the fuck out of Drake. That's why if you look back at Jack Dorsey, by the way, if you don't know, that's the former co-founder of Twitter. He's Jay-Z's friend. I said, now, why would Jack Dorsey hate Drake? He been going in the whole time. Yeah, the whole time he's always been just kind of egging on Kendrick to just kill Drake. You know what I'm saying?
Kendrick continues the verse by rapping, "The black Noah, I just strangled me a goat." Here he's drawing back to the biblical story of Noah, where only 2 of each animal were allowed on Noah's ark. Noah strangled 1 of 3 goats so that only 2 could get on his ark, and that's symbolic of the takedown Kendrick performed on Drake in 2024, with a callback to the whole Big 3 debate, as there's 3 goats, Drake, Cole, and Kendrick eliminated 1 of those 3 goats. On the second verse, he drops these bars that are kind of funny. He says, "What the F you wearing, bro? It's tacky. People laying on their deathbed trying to match me." And this is because right after the beef, when Kendrick left Drake's career on its deathbed, he was spotted out at his son's soccer game wearing this outfit, which not only looks like the outfit he should be wearing to court when he sues UMG and Kendrick, but it also bears a striking resemblance to the outfit that Kendrick wore on the album cover of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Kendrick continues on the third verse rapping, "Things get spooky every day in October." Now, obviously, you guys know October 31st is Halloween, a holiday filled with spooky costumes and decorations, but October is also the month of Drake's birthday and the name of his company, October's Very Own. Kendrick is bringing the spookiness every day of the month that represents Drake. And what's truly interesting is how many of the songs off this project carry a lot of the same elements as Not Like Us. Squabble Up, Hey Now, Peekaboo, and TV Off all incorporate similar production and flows to Not Like Us, with the subject matter bearing the same aggressive, braggadocious energy that's found on Not Like Us. Even the bars on all of these records seem to depict Kendrick still being in this state of war, with bars on Squabble Up like, "I got friends, I got foes, but they all sit in ducks, hit his turf, get it crackin', double back like a deluxe." On Hey Now, he raps, "You crash out, then you better break the backboard, I got friends hoping that they make the tabloids." On TV Off, he raps about someone saying they're bigger than him. "Say you bigger than myself, but it's not enough. I get on their butt, yeah, somebody gotta do it. I make them mad, somebody gotta do it." And on Peekaboo, he raps things like, "Popping out, you better not smut my name." So while he's not deliberately dissing Drake on any of these records, one can't help but notice that the subject matter bears resemblance to Not Like Us for its aggressive energy, Kendrick's declaration of being the greatest on all these records, things getting spooky in October, things like Peekaboo. It's literally in the titles, like he's telling you he's ready to squabble up. And Kendrick did mention on Not Like Us that he had 5 more diss tracks kept in the tuck. And with the energy of these records matching Not Like Us, it seems very likely that these songs were initially the skeleton for future diss records, if Kendrick felt like he had to keep this battle going. With the fast pace that he was dropping records at the height of the beef, we know that Kendrick probably had these records pre-recorded, or at least a skeleton of them with all the flows created, some of the hooks, etc. And he probably went back right before releasing them to replace them with bars that were relevant to the battle and attacks on Drake's character. So it seems very likely, given the subject matter of these records, that they were supposed to be the backbone to future diss records that Kendrick would keep in the tuck if he needed to continue this battle. Now, the biggest sneak diss of all on this album comes from the Heart Part 6. With Drake releasing his own version of the Heart Part 6, you were probably wondering if Kendrick would discontinue the series due to Drake using the title, or if he would release a Heart Part 6 and address Drake directly, or if he would just skip it and move on to the Heart Part 7. But he did the exact opposite of all those things. Instead of scrapping the Heart series, Kendrick completely disacknowledges that Drake ever made the Heart Part 6, similar to how Drake himself tried wiping the song from existence by deleting it off his Instagram. And instead of talking about anything Drake related on the Heart Part 6, Kendrick recounts the early days of his recording career, the bond he had with fellow TDE members, and every aspect of inspiration and tribulations that made him into the artist he is today. On Not Like Us, he told Drake that they are not the same, and on the Heart Part 6, he explains exactly how. Now, the final individual to catch subliminal strays from Kendrick on this project is none other than J. Cole. As you guys obviously know, J. Cole was the first one to pop out in this battle and formally diss Kendrick, only to walk his diss back a few days later and apologize, and later released a song called Port Antonio where he reflected on the beef, emphasizing that he did the right thing by not getting caught up in the lyrical bloodbath of allegations and bot-fueled trolling tactics that plagued this beef, and he also clarified that he wouldn't have lost the battle to Kendrick, but instead, he would have lost a bro. He later exclaims in the song that Drake will always be his guy and that Drake did a lot for Cole's career, seemingly standing on the sidelines. Kendrick addresses Cole backing out of this beef and staying neutral throughout it. Right away in the intro, Whacked Up Murals, where he raps, I watch him pander with the backhanded compliments. While we discussed before that this could be a possible reference to Drake, it could also be a reference to Cole, as Jermaine got on stage at the Dreamville Festival to back out of this beef and also tell the crowd that he thinks Kendrick is one of the greatest rappers of all time. It's important to note that Kendrick also released this project right when Cole released his most acclaimed mixtape, Friday Night Lights, on streaming platforms over 10 years after its release, completely stepping on Cole's moment there and letting him know that he's watched him pander with these backhanded compliments that he made on that Dreamville Festival stage. Now, on Whacked Out Murals, we see Kendrick directly call out people by name. He mentioned Snoop Dogg posting Taylor Made, Lil Wayne hating on him, Nas being the only one to congratulate him, but there's also several moments on that record, just like on Watch the Party Die, where Kendrick cuts the bar off early, leaving the listener to interpret what he's actually saying. There's an interesting theory that when Kendrick raps, I paid homage and I always mind my business, I made the, and then it goes silent, he's actually saying I made J. Cole beg me for forgiveness.
What Kendrick said right here, I made the Cole asking you for forgiveness.
Now, on Whacked Out Murals, aside from acknowledging that speaking out in the fashion that he did will cause public reaction to inevitably be fueled by both love and hate, Kendrick is also taking a clear stance and dismissing the idea of calling for any sort of truce or issuing out apologies. As he raps, F apologies, I want to see y'all geeked up, don't acknowledge me, then maybe we could say it's fair, take it to the internet and I'ma take it there. This is likely in reference to Cole apologizing for the way he maneuvered early on in the beef, acknowledging Kendrick's shots on Like That with his own response 7-minute drill, but then backpedaling with apologies. And Cole also rapped on Port Antonio that Jermaine is no king if that means I gotta dig up dirt and pay the whole team of algorithm bots just to sway the whole thing on social media competing for your favorable memes. Kendrick, on the other hand, rapped that there's no backing down on his end, and while the battle may have led to social media wars, he's ready for it all over again. Take it to the internet and I'ma take it there. On the third verse of the track, he continues referencing Cole's moral conundrum of not knowing which side to pick, not wanting to lose a brother, and instead bowing out to prioritize peace, and Kendrick emphasizes that he's taking the exact opposite approach and that Cole can stay on the other side. He touches on this in several set of bars, including, I never pieced it up, that stuff don't sit well with me, before I take a truce, I take him to hell with me. Another set of bars later on in the song, he raps, okay, let's settle it, these guys been fake loyal, since y'all pandering to choose a side, let me do it for you. After your hip-hop, I watch the party just die. And on the final set of bars in which he addresses the other side, he raps, F everybody empathetic to the other side, I vow, a B-word, love B-words, they exist with them in style, exterminate them right now. Kendrick then makes a callback to that B-word bar on the next song, Squabble Up, when he raps, B-word with him and some B-word in him. That's a lot of B-word. Essentially saying that Drake has female dog energy in him, and he keeps B-words around him as they exist together in style. With J. Cole likely being that B-word that Kendrick is referring to, because he was empathetic to the other side. But let me know which side you guys are on. Let me know how you feel about GNX. Let me know if I was reaching with any of these bars, or if I missed a bunch of other sneak disses throughout this album. This battle really turned into a 20v1 between Drake and the entire rap industry, to Kendrick now being a part of his own 20v1 with his former idol Lil Wayne, his former friends Drake and J. Cole, and a comedian, if you want to call him that, with a bad haircut.
There's a lot of little nuggets in both of their disses that if it wasn't for these breakdowns, and salute to, guys like this, Rapaholics, because I think they directly get it.